Okay, just a status update. We're trying to still check whether we can get the YouTube running. Or the other alternative is that we will start and it will be recorded, and then the recording will be posted on or available on YouTube. But let's see where we are. Okay, so I've just received confirmation that the opening or the meeting is being recorded, and then the recording will be available on YouTube. So while they sort out the technology, we can then go ahead. So, opening of the meeting. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to this third meeting of the Transitional Committee. At the outset, we have a few replacements for the membership that we would now like to acknowledge and welcome. So for the developing country parties constituency and from the small island developing states, so Mr. Mikai Robertson replaced Ms. Diane Black-Lane for this meeting. So welcome, Mikai. From Asia Pacific, Mr. Daniel Lund has replaced Ms. Rosa Perez. Mr. Yingqi Liu has replaced Ms. Hyukyung Jung. For the Latin America and the Caribbean, Mr. Mateus Bastos has replaced Ms. Milagros de Camps. Mr. Avinash Persod has replaced Mr. Carlos Mendez. And for the developed country parties constituency, Ms. Laurence Ausu has replaced Mr. Stephen Kuhn. Mr. Jaime de Bourbon de Parme has replaced Mr. Jens Vogel. And Ms. Heike Hen has replaced Ms. Sinead Walsh. We are very pleased to have these new members join and contribute to our deliberations. Now, to start, we would like to invite Mr. Daniele Violetti, Senior Director of Programs Coordination at the UNFCCC Secretariat, to provide some welcoming remarks. You have the floor, Daniele.
Thank you, Uti, and on behalf of the UNFCCC Secretariat, it's really a great pleasure to welcome you all, TC members, the two co-chairs, Uti and Richard, and all the observers and TSU members, to this third meeting of the Transitional Committee. I think before even starting, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of the Dominican Republic for kindly hosting us in beautiful Santo Domingo. I hope we will have the time to also see something outside this room, but thanks again for the kind hospitality and support. I think I don't have to speak much on the importance of this meeting. It's the third, and we know we have 4 meetings of the Transitional Committee, so really it's the moment of truth in terms of advancing the work so that we can have completed the mandate of the committee for COP28. So really it's important that we make the best use of these 4 days in front of us for achieving the maximum result possible. As always, the Secretariat it's here to support you, and we are happy to do so, and we will continue to do so here and between now and the COP on all matters that you may need. So without further taking time, thank you very much again, and welcome to TC3. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniele. Next, we have a message from the COP28 President-designate, Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber.
colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I very much appreciate the opportunity to address you this morning. Allow me to begin by thanking the Dominican Republic for hosting this third session of the Transitional Committee for Loss and Damage. Let me also acknowledge the leadership of the co-chairs, alongside the hard work of all the Transitional Committee members over the last few months. Your continuing efforts will be vital in laying the foundation for the fund and funding arrangements for loss and damage. All the indicators, from scientific reports to weather reports, are telling us that climate impacts are getting more severe, and the most vulnerable communities around the world are the least equipped to cope and recover. The Loss and Damage Fund, established at COP27, was specifically established to address this inequity. Your efforts to map out the key details from the fund structure to its governance are all critical elements for turning the promise made in Sharm el-Sheikh into a reality. I urge you to make sure that your final recommendations are clear, precise, and easily understood by all stakeholders. I also ask that you continue to be creative in identifying funding sources and defining the funding arrangements to ensure that funds are adequate and distributed efficiently. And here, allow me to speak beyond this specific audience to address all donor countries in making a call for early pledges. It is one thing to have a well-structured fund, but will only be fully operational if it is actually funded. This will be my main message at the Loss and Damage Ministerial at ONGA next month, and it is my main message to all of you today. Early pledges from donor countries and all other sources of funding will encourage others to pitch in. I wish you a successful meeting, and please know that you have my full support in making sure the Fund for Loss and Damage is up and running by COP28. COP28 is the place to deliver and operationalize the fund and funding arrangements for loss and damage. It is one of the key deliverables I am committed to. We need to respond to the realities and meet the expectations of the most vulnerable communities on the front lines of climate change. And we must offer real, robust assistance to ensure that they preserve and regain lost development and growth. So let us unite, let us act, and let us deliver. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to the COP28 President-designate for offering those remarks to help us set the scene for this meeting. Next, I'd like to recognize the presence of our really high-level representatives from the host country, from the Dominican Republic. So I'd like to invite Ms. Milagros de Camps to offer some welcoming remarks. You have the floor.
Thank you, Uti, and good morning to everyone. On behalf of the government of the Dominican Republic, Ambassador Ruben Cillier from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and myself want to give you a very, very warm welcome to the Dominican Republic. It's an honor to host you here for this third meeting of the Transitional Committee on the operationalization of the fund and the new funding arrangements for responding to loss and damage. And as we are gathering here this week, response actions to Tropical Storm Franklin, which crossed the country last week, leaving record rain accumulations remain ongoing. Preliminary accounts of losses are estimated to be about $90 million, with lives lost and over 100 houses partially or totally destroyed. This type of events are becoming more and more frequent in our country, and we are committed to a meeting where we continue promoting mutual understanding of the scope of the fund, its institutional arrangements, and the purpose and nature of the funding arrangements as we begin our work of outlining the final TC recommendations. As a diverse group of climate-vulnerable countries, AOSA's position has been clear in promoting a fund and funding arrangements that are nationally determined to ensure that loss and damage is addressed in a consistent, context-relevant, and sensitive way, and through the most locally appropriate mechanisms. Priorities must be driven by demand from the bottom up and shaped by national systems, plans, and policies. The most effective way to address loss and damage is designing financing arrangements, modalities, and access criteria that responds to the range of different contexts and needs, adopting a comprehensive methodology that cover the full scope of the harms experienced by those affected by climate change. We are starting the second half of the allocated Transitional Committee timeframe, and we need to continue securing political will and momentum for a successful outcome at COP28. The 2020 decade has been a record-breaking for climate extremes, but it has also been a record-breaking period for financial flows and commitments. We have seen how resources can be quickly mobilized to respond to the global crisis. We need to show the same commitment to tackling the effects of the climate crisis. As we approach COP28, we must strive to make the best use of our time in our negotiating and coordinating spaces, and TC3 and the Loss and Damage Ministerial in New York present a crucial turning point in reaching consensus before the final recommendations are set forward at TC4. The Dominican Republic remains committed in its efforts to facilitate and promote the establishment of a fund and funding arrangements that respond to the needs of the most vulnerable countries, ensuring country-driven responses to loss and damage, and reducing the burdens to access finance addressing the ever-growing climate-related disasters. We look forward to a very productive discussion in the coming days and wish you a pleasant stay in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Milagros, for those words of welcome, and also for your generosity for hosting us here in the very hot Dominican Republic. I was going to say it's a warm welcome, but it's actually very hot here. Now, sort of before proceeding with the remaining of the opening, just to acknowledge that there was one replacement that I missed earlier. Apologies for that, but it was also missing from my speaking notes. So I'd like to welcome Angela Rivera of Colombia, who is replacing Jaime Ramon from Chile. You're most welcome to join the committee, and look forward to working with you. So, now proceeding with the remainder of our opening. So, you already know that the last meeting, the second meeting of the Transitional Committee signaled a shift in our mode of work. So, from a mode of work where we were sort of primarily collecting information to actually now moving to discussing the details of the new funding arrangements, including a fund. That meeting concluded with a very wide range of views and proposals that have been put forward, and some additional areas also where further inputs, particularly from the technical support unit, would be helpful in having been highlighted. Since then, since our second meeting, we've had the second Glasgow Dialogue and the second mandated workshop in support of this work. Both of those have now taken place. These events provided additional opportunities for focused discussions on different elements of the new funding arrangements and the fund, together with a wide range of stakeholders who provided very helpful insights and context to inform our discussions. Now, in response to the Transitional Committee's request for inputs, we've also received a set of working papers prepared by the Technical Support Unit. These papers provide technical background and inputs on various dimensions of our work for members to draw on, if and where useful for our deliberations. Now, to set expectations for these meetings, Richard and I, we have once again prepared a scenario note. It is under our responsibility as co-chairs to guide the discussions and outline several of the key issues that we, as a committee, must urgently make progress on. Now, as co-chairs, Richard and I, our ambition and expectation is that this meeting takes us several steps ahead in our journey towards delivering agreed recommendations to COP28. And again, let me once more highlight that Richard and I are fully committed to making sure that we deliver on all aspects of the mandate that we received in Sharm el-Sheikh. Now, in practice, this means capturing areas of consensus, and in cases where we cannot yet find consensus, specifying very clear options on the basis of which we can continue our discussions in a more sort of targeted and focused manner. Now, with this in mind, it is indeed my pleasure to officially declare open the third meeting of the Transitional Committee on the operationalization of the new funding arrangements for responding to loss and damage and the fund established in paragraph 3 of decisions 2 CP27 and 2 CMA4. Then turning to Richard.
Thank you very much, Uti, and good morning, colleagues, TC members, advisors, observers, and members of the TSU. Before I deal with the agenda item that I'm tasked to deal with, let me also thank the colleagues Milagros and the members of the Dominican Republic government for hosting us here. It's good to be back in Latin America. I think the last time we were in this part of the world was almost a year and a half ago in Antigua, Barbuda. So it's good to be back in your region, and thank you very much for hosting us. Okay, so now I'm going to ask the committee to turn to the documents in front of us. So I'd like to refer to document TC3/2023/1, which contains the provisional agenda, and document TC3/2023/2, which contains the annotations, as well as the provisional schedule of the meeting. You would have, and this is not in my notes, but if you're on Twitter, we're in trouble for our decisions as co-chairs based on guidance that we received from the constituencies, and I think we've been called out to respond to the issue of open, inclusive, transparent processes, and let me respond and say our process continues to be open, inclusive, and transparent. There have been a number of submissions made by members, TC members, to this meeting, and I would ask the Secretariat, unless anyone has any other objections, to make sure that those are posted on the website. We'll give colleagues not inside the room an indication of where the different groupings in the TC itself are thinking, what our priorities are, and what our solutions are. So we will continue to maintain that. We have decided, based on the rules of procedure and requests from members, to close the meeting for 2 days. So we will keep this section open, and then we'll move into a closed session to allow for deliberations amongst the TC members. We will then, tomorrow afternoon, reopen the meeting, and the co-chairs will give a brief explanation of what we've discussed and where we are. These are not easy decisions. They do not take away at all from the provisions for stakeholder participation, and they do not provide any sense of or intention that we don't want to listen to civil society. It was civil society that helped us get to this point, and we recognize that, and we respect that contribution, and we expect you to continue pushing us to do more and to create better things and better processes. So I just wanted to clarify that. The closed sessions are aimed to create a formal closed session, so they are not informal discussions. There will be outcomes, we hope, from that session. They will be recorded by co-chairs, and they will help us advance consensus. On that basis, I would propose that the TC adopt its provisional agenda and its annotations contained in the documents TC3 2023/1 and /2. The floor is open if colleagues have any comments at this stage. No, seeing no comments, I would like to propose that the TC adopt the documents as presented. Thank you. The documents are adopted. Okay, the next matter is now agenda item 3, which is the outcomes of the second Glasgow dialogue held during the SB sessions and the second workshop on addressing loss and damage in the context of decisions 2 CP27 and 2 CMA4. The committee has the documents in front of us to remind you all that the report of the second Glasgow dialogue was prepared under the guidance of the SBI chair. We were asked to facilitate that meeting in Bonn, and we did that, but the responsibility was mandated to the SBI chair to prepare that report. It addresses various topics related to operationalizing the new funding arrangements and the fund, and also for maximizing support from existing funding arrangements. We had a very detailed 2 days of statements and it was clear what the different positions of countries were. So please refer to that if you need further examples. There were over 250 participants in both the Glasgow Dialogue and the workshop that was held in Bangkok, as well as civil society organizations, indigenous peoples, women's groups, and environmental organizations. We'd like to thank the SBI chair for producing his report and submitting it formally to this meeting, as well as the Secretariat for helping produce the report of the Bangkok workshop, and also many thanks to the government of Thailand for hosting us in Bangkok. We don't have to adopt the reports, they're just formally presented to you, but I will open the floor if anybody wishes to reflect on the Glasgow Dialogue and or the Bangkok workshop. No comments? Okay, thank you, colleagues. So with that we will continue with our agenda. We will now move to agenda item 4, which will be a closed session. So can we just confirm that the webcast will be closed, except for those additional advisors that have access to the webcast?